I feel like dating apps have like I think the dating apps can be a big downer if you're a guy because it's like the most direct, like hardcore competitive environment to try to like basically, depending on the app you're on, like just trying to fuck somebody. And these environments haven't existed like this before, where like men and women can just go to some like giant like internet repository, submit their profiles, and see who wants to have sex with them. So I think that it's a pretty unique thing that is kind of like just appearing now. And if you don't have much success on it, I think it can probably wear you down very, very, very quickly.
Welcome to the Emily and Todd Podcast. Before we get started, please like and comment on the video as it does really help with the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, my name is Stephen Bonnell. I go online as Destiny. Some people know me from my YouTube channel or no, just my YouTube channel right now. And yeah, I do politics online. I'm like a center left, far left person, depending on who I'm talking to. Not as far left as my hair would have you think, but yeah. And then I guess we were talking about like, I think it was like relationship red pill stuff or something today, right?
Right. So we're both in the dating relationship spheres, both Wheat Waffles and us, the Emily and Todd Podcast. Wheat Waffles has been on our channel before, and we've had some interesting discussions about specifically dating apps and just sort of the dating world today. And I know that you've had some interesting input as well on your channel. But let's turn it to Wheat Waffles. Can you introduce yourself too?
I just want to hear how much Destiny knows real quickly about the manosphere, because I know you're not a dating oriented channel. You mainly, as you mentioned at the beginning, you're mainly politics focused. So but it sounds like you have a little bit of knowledge. Like you mentioned red pill. Have you ever heard of black pill though?
Yeah, I guess like the sub communities I'm semi familiar with would be like MGTOW, PUA, red pill, black pill. Yeah, I'm sure there are probably others too, but those are probably the ones I'm the more familiar with. So black pill is like, I guess it depends on how extreme you are, but it's the idea that you've taken the black pill and you've realized that certain guys are going to get certain girls, and there's very little that you can do to change this unless you're willing to get like cosmetic surgery or something, and you're kind of just like fucked. And there's not much you can do to escape those circumstances if you're like a normal average guy. I think that's like black pill stuff, right?
If you wanted to say that was a very extreme version of black pill, I'd be more on your page. But I don't think black pill would go, anywhere near that far. Like 99% of black pillars would never say anything close to that extreme. But the reason why, you might think that that's what the black pill is saying is because when you go to the comment sections of, say, my channel or other black pillars channels, you're always going to get that bias to the more extreme side because that's the loud minority talking, and they're the most hardcore black pillars who say random stuff such as, oh, if you're not 6'4" Chad, then it's over, you might as well give up. If you're not in the top 5% or the top 1%, you might as well give up, it's over. There's no point. That's what you'll see in the comment section. But if you watch my content or a couple other black pill channels content, you'll see that it's a lot more modest and grounded in reality. It's more data driven. It's more like objectively focused rather than nihilistically focused.
What's going to be the difference between like moderate black pill versus like red pill content?
So red pill, the main difference between red pill and black pill, in fact, it's a little, I can nuance it like really precise, but this will take a couple minutes to explain, because the red pill is actually broader than a lot of people think. Like when people hear red pill, they just like, oh, that just means self-improvement, bro, just get a haircut, bro, just learn game, bro, all of those things. But I've actually looked at the red pill community, the different channels in the space on YouTube, and it's a lot broader than people think. There's actually some sides of the red pill that are actually closer to black pill than they are on the other sides of the red pill, if that makes sense. So if I could just explain it for a couple of minutes, I could give you a very clear picture. So there's three main factors in the manosphere that people disagree on, and those are the importance of looks, how much you can change your looks, and whether women are hypergamous or not. And there's some red pillars that reject all three of those. So they would be your pickup artists because they believe that game is the most important thing. So they don't believe that hypergamy exists, because they believe even if you're a 3-4 out of 10 guy, if you've got perfect game, you can still pick up a 7 or 8 out of 10 Stacy. And obviously they reject the importance of looks as well because they think it's mostly about game. And they reject the genetic component too because anybody can improve their game. But then when you look at the black pill, which is the complete opposite of, that way of thinking, they reject the importance of things like game. They're mainly focused on looks. And then they believe that you can't change your looks all that much. And they believe that women are hypergamous. So they only want to date guys that are more attractive than them. And just to give one more example of how the red pill can be close to the black pill, because there's one subset of the red pill which believes in two of those three pillars that I just mentioned, but they're still classed as red pill because they do believe that women are hypergamous, and they do believe that looks are very important, but they reject the idea that your looks are determined by genetics. So these guys are mainly like focused on gym, improving your fashion, improving your style. So they believe that women only want to date guys that are more attractive than them, but they believe that if you want to get into that position, you just need to improve your looks to a point through things like gym, style, hair, grooming, and so on. Okay. That's like my basic overview. So, I think if you just look at that, if you zoom out from all what I've just said, that, one aspect of the red pill where they're mainly focused on gym, style, hair, I would argue that they're actually closer to the black pill than they are the pickup artist guys who are more concerned with game and, dating not being hypergamous.
Gotcha. Okay.
Awesome.
So do you have anything to respond to that?
I sound like I would fit like pretty squarely in the red pill camp there then, I guess, if that's the...
Okay, so if we ask one by one then, of those three pillars, how much, like, to what extent do you agree with each of them? Like, in, just a percentage, like 0 to 100. So 0 to 100, are women hypergamous?
Is hypergamous for just dating or for sex? Or what do you mean when you say hypergamous?
So they want to date guys that are higher up the ladder in X, and whether X be status, looks, wealth, anything like that.
Or just your total SMV.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard one because like everybody wants to date somebody higher than them in some regard, I would imagine, right?
Okay, so that means that you do believe that women are hypergamous then? You're 100 on that?
Yeah, women and men, I would say I'm 100 on, are both hypergamous, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I disagree with the men being hypergamous, but we can get to that in a second. But, just based on that alone, you're not, based on the fact that you agree that people want to date up, that women and men are hypergamous, that means that you reject this idea that some 4 out of 10 guy with unbelievable social skills and game can seduce an 8 out of 10 woman at a bar because he's got, that just raw skill, that raw game.
Well, I mean, I feel like the tricky part here is going to be in defining the words of like, what does it mean to date up, or what does it mean to prefer something up? Because I would say that like, probably like, it's going to be reasonable depending on how you look. Like if you're a horrifically scarred face missing one arm, and you're probably not going to pull a 10 no matter how good your game is. But I think that like most guys can be like a 6 or at least like a 6 or 7 if you like do a haircut, like take care of yourself in terms of hygiene, like have a decent pair of fitting clothes, and that those guys can pull pretty far above what I think a lot of people online would think they could pull. So I don't know if that ends with the hypergamous thing. I think we have to define pretty rigidly what it means to like date up or look up in something, I guess.
Well, I could hopefully give a accurate answer to that hypergamy is more concerned with SMV, and I don't think that social skills is a component of SMV. Rather, it's like the communicator of SMV. It's similar to
like social male value or something. What is SMV?
It's sexual market value.
Oh, sexual. Okay.
Everyone's got their own opinion on what goes into sexual market value, but people mainly disagree on the proportions rather than the components themselves. So everyone agrees, like the red pillars and black pillars are like, that part of your SMV will be looks, part of your SMV will be your status, your money, things like that along those lines. Your height goes into it, your dick size goes into it, your even things like your voice. Like if you've got a really high pitched voice, then that's like lower SMV. But then it's widely considered that social skills aren't a part of your SMV because that's like the communicator. Like it's delivering the SMV to the person you're talking to.
So could two people have the same sexual market value but different social skills?
Yeah. So they can have the same sex. So if there's two guys, they're both 6 foot tall on the dot. They're both like a 6 out of 10 in the face. They both have the same income and like wealth and status, things like that. But one of them's got, far better game and social skills. Then obviously he's going to outcompete the other guy because he's beating him in that department.
Okay, but that wouldn't be considered part of his sexual market value?
No, I wouldn't consider that. And I think that most people in the manosphere would agree with that they think it's separate. You do have like a very small subset of people that think that game is a part of your SMV, but I don't think it's really tied. I mainly hear the argument that game is like what sells your SMV. It's like in sales, the product is the product, and then the sales pitch is in essence the game aspect of it.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. All right, interesting. Yeah, I'm chilling. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just so we could wrap up this thing, because I know it's taken a while to explain, because you're not like a hardcore manosphere participant, but just to go through the three things then. If you had to say 0 to 100 on each of them, just for my sake, so I can get an idea of where you stand. So women are hypergamous, 0 to 100. How much would you agree on that? That they want to date guys higher SMV than them?
Fuck. The problem is just it's that SMV formula. I'd probably say no then. I'd probably say that people probably are about on the same level. That's what I would say. They probably shoot for about the same level. That's probably what I would say. But we'll probably get into the weeds on that later, I guess. It's probably
okay. Okay, for the sake of continuity, the importance of looks. So women want to date guys mainly for their looks, 0 to 100.
I'd probably do that at like probably 40-ish.
40. Okay, that's fair enough. And the last one, your looks is mainly genetic.
I'd probably do that at like 40-ish.
40 as well.
Yeah, I think so.
So you think the majority is the things that you can change your looks, such as going to the gym, improving your style, your fashion, fixing your hair, grooming, skincare, things like that. And then the genetic components will obviously be like your facial structure, your hairline, your height, your frame, your like muscle building potential and things like that. Okay, sounds good. I think I've got a clear picture. I know me and you have been talking a lot, so I want to give Emily and Todd a chance to give their opinion. I don't want to come onto this show and just dominate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Wheat Waffles. So I'm Emily King. I have 2.5 million followers on TikTok. I'm kind of new to the manosphere, to be honest. I kind of fell into it after I started gaining a following on TikTok about 2 years ago. Is when I started that. And I'm just kind of a, I guess, real world normal person that was working a 9 to 5 and started posting in 2020 some TikToks to do with my own relationship, and started falling into more like dating advice because I had been out of the dating world for about 12 years and had like re-entered it. And I saw the differences. Quite different compared to when I was like back in high school, especially because in between, dating apps started to become developed, and that seemed to be like the majority of where people were meeting. And I was seeing like a lot of content, especially on TikTok, of women complaining about men. And honestly, like it hadn't been my experience, seeing these horrendous things supposedly that men were doing, and I wanted to kind of speak to that. And so some of the content that I started creating had to do with validating some of the things that like men wanted, especially since I was seeing that skew of, women were expecting men to put in all the effort, especially initially on dating apps, and they were complaining that there were no good men out there. So yeah, I started getting some traction from guys, I think, that felt validated by the struggles that they were having. And yeah, and then, we just started this podcast kind of centered around dating and relationships, mostly starting with dating and talking about struggles that men are having. And it's been a couple months now. And I'll let Todd.
Yeah, we're still pretty new.
Yeah, we're still pretty new, but I'll let Todd introduce himself.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Todd, and my background is I'm a psychotherapist. I've been in private practice for 25 years. So I'm kind of the elder statesman here, even though I probably have the lowest IQ.
Did you say psychotherapist? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
and so, I've been in private practice, and also I've never been married. And so I've been in and out of relationships my entire adult life. And so I've seen firsthand the changes and shifts in the dating market from when I was in my 20s to now being in my early 50s. And and I've also worked with tons of young men that are really struggling now. And so the combination of kind of my own personal experiences and just, working with so many guys, I think has given me, insight into, kind of what's going on as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think what we want to start talking about initially, at least, is what do you think is the impact of dating apps now, Stephen? And what is your opinion about men that you hear are having struggles, or what they're saying about dating apps? And what do you think is sort of the things that they could do to help resolve those issues?
I feel like dating apps have I think that dating apps can be a big downer if you're a guy, because it's like the most direct, like hardcore competitive environment to try to like basically, depending on the app you're on, like just trying to fuck somebody. And these environments haven't existed like this before, where like men and women can just go to some like giant like internet repository, submit their profiles, and see who wants to have sex with them. So I think that it's a pretty unique thing that is kind of like just appearing now. And if you don't have much success on it, I think it can probably wear you down very, very, very quickly. I do think people take them a little bit too seriously sometimes. Like it's very easy for especially men to get discouraged if they're not getting good results in like a couple days or a week or whatever. And it feels like people are pretty reticent to try to figure out like more successful strategies, but rather they kind of just figure that like they're fucked or they can't do anything, or there's no way that they can succeed on these apps because they don't have the right looks or profile or something outside their control, basically. So, I mean, I would say that dating apps have probably been overall, I guess, good for some people, bad for a lot of people's self-esteem. But we obviously need to find a better way to deal with kind of the newer dating markets that exist today that haven't really existed this way historically.
And what would those better ways?
Well, I guess it depends on where you want to go with that. I think that a lot of men are, I would say, socially retarded. I think that for a long period of history, I think that as a man, all you've basically needed is a job, and you're kind of like guaranteed almost to get a woman, because women traditionally weren't working and they needed somebody to kind of provide for a household. But I think as women have gotten the ability to control their reproductive health, so they're not like having kids really early, and then as they've entered job markets, so they have the ability to provide for themselves, I think men have been put in this awkward position where they have to provide something more than just a paycheck or just a salary. And I think traditionally we don't really have the training to do that. We don't have the training to succeed in relationships where you have to actually put forth some amount of social or emotional maturity or effort. We would just like traditionally kind of expected to have a paycheck and for that to be enough.
Well, it's interesting. I agree with the premise of what you said. I agree with everything you said with regard to how, dating has changed like historically. Because when you look at dating historically, then of course the main thing that guys would be bringing to the table is their wealth through means of a job. But obviously that's all changed now because women are in the workplace. We live in, the developed world where resources are a lot more abundant. So it's not a case of life or death for when a woman gets pregnant anymore, and or at least, living in extreme poverty, because the like welfare programs are a lot more generous nowadays as well. So I agree, with that, but compared to 50 to 100 years ago, the importance of wealth in today's dating market has decreased significantly in terms of what guys can bring to the table. But in its place, I would argue the thing that's replaced that is looks. Because if you look at, the way that Instagram has come through, and Tinder's like been introduced in the last 10, 15 years. Looks is at the forefront of that. There's not really much that you can convey value with regard to social skills, or things like that, when it's mostly online nowadays. That's how most people meet up and, advertise their boyfriends if they want to show him off. It's mostly about looks, in my opinion. That's what's taken the place of wealth.
Yeah, that's just not I just don't feel that way in terms of like communicating with women or talking to women. It doesn't feel that way at all. I guess like for Instagram or for like Tinder profiles, I guess the first thing you can kind of see is looks, but I don't know how we would resolve a disagreement there in terms of I feel like I know like so many beautiful women that when they're like qualifying like the types of men they would date or the types of guys that they're in relationships with, I feel like more often than not I see like really pretty women with not as pretty guys, but like usually the guys are bringing something else to the table. Like they're either really funny, I guess it could be like really wealthy, but they're excelling in some other area besides just being like giga chads.
Well, I have a video on my channel. I could just bring up the exact reasons that I could summarize again here for why I believe that looks is becoming more and more important in today's dating market. And how many reasons did I have? I've had 4 reasons. So the first is technology, which I kind of already summarized. That when it comes to online, looks is at the top of the pyramid, and online dating is, becoming more and more dominant nowadays. But when it comes to things like game, personality, money, status, they're at the bottom of the pyramid for online. The second reason is the number of options women have. Like women have more and more options because of online dating. And because they have this many options, they need to select through those and filter down to
Wait, do women really have more and more options with online dating? I don't think I agree with that.
Oh, 100%. Just do a quick YouTube search of a woman Tinder experiment. In fact, go even to the next extreme of that. Do below average looks woman Tinder experiment, and you'll have some 3 out of 10 overweight woman getting hundreds of matches on Tinder.
Yeah, so here's something that I want to be really careful about. And I notice this a lot when it comes to online conversations, especially in the pill communities. People are very quick to throw into one basket dating and sex. And I think that's a massive mistake. I think those two need to be wildly separated, because people will say these things where people say like, oh, women have more options than ever before. I don't think that's true. I think that women have probably more options when it comes to finding random guys to fuck, for sure. But Tinder hasn't made it so that 3 out of 10 whale is now dating a guy earning $150,000 a year. Like, I don't think the options for who a woman can date has expanded much. Maybe for who they can have sex with that isn't like normally in their immediate communities, but I don't think it's changed the dating connection too much.
Yes, I agree. I agree with what you've just said there, that dating and sex does need to be separated in terms of what a woman can get. And I don't think that a woman's dating genuine relationship options has increased all too much, but her sex options has exploded like magnitudes upon magnitudes because of online dating. But why I still, don't agree with you is because it's not about, what works in theory. It's about perception. Because when you look at these women who are on dating apps, what is going to be their perception when they get all of these matches? What is going to be their perception when they're on Instagram and they're getting hundreds of guys spamming their inbox, liking their photos, commenting how hot an average woman is? Her perception is going to be, wow, like I've got so much attention nowadays. Her ego is going to get inflated. So even though,
like women have
99% of these guys are just interested in wanting to have sex with her, she's not seeing that side of it.
Yeah, I don't think this is very different than historically how it has been. I think that it's just more visible now. So like we feel like it's way different. I don't know if Emily wants to chime in on this, but like here's something that shocked me. In talking to a lot of women, if you ask a lot of women, when is the first time like older men started to hit on you? My assumption would have been like, I don't know, probably like maybe 15, 16, 17. I have so many women that tell me that like as young as like 10 or 11 years old, they start to get like creepy guys that'll start to hit on them. I think that since the dawn of time, when women have been like getting offered dick through basically every single interaction with a man for basically like their entire like from 12 onwards. I don't think that online dating has changed that, or online dating has made that different. Like, oh, like 50 years ago, women were never used to every guy in their area trying to fuck them. And now all of a sudden it's changed because of Instagram and stuff. I don't agree with that. I think it's just become more visible for men. And I agree with what you're saying that the perception is important, because now in a man's mind, they're like, oh my God, like it's crazy how many guys are trying to fuck all these girls. That's wild. But I think for women historically, it's like, yeah, that's literally always been our lives. Like that's never been different than it is right now, I think.
Well, Stephen, I can speak to this just because, again, I've been in the dating market. I actually disagree with you. And the reason is because of the fact that most people had a very small area in which, and you could easily poison the well then if you had that kind of behavior. But now, in an even average size city or a big city, one of these top 5-10% guys can go on a rampage where he wouldn't have that access in the same way. He would have to work a lot harder. He would have to be going to bars and cold approaching every night. And, it's one of those things where he's probably not going to be cold approaching 4 out of 10 women if he's an 8. But you know what? If he's horny and he goes on Tinder, he can easily hook one up and have him come over at 2:00 in the morning nowadays.
Yeah, there's easier access.
Yeah, I mean, like the dating apps might make it a bit easier to like actually find and connect to somebody, but I'm speaking to the specific claim that like girls' minds are changing because they're getting so many offers on their DMs and stuff. I think that historically women have always been getting a lot of offers or propositions for sex. I don't think that in particular has changed. In terms of like, are people able to find people just for sex more easily? Yeah, that's true. But I don't think the offer has changed much for women. I think they're, again, traditionally have always been getting offered sex by everybody.
Well, if I had to rephrase it, I think if it's gone from, 50 years ago, it was like moderately high to nowadays astronomically high. Obviously women would still be getting a lot of offers 50 years ago, but their social circles will be a lot smaller. They're mainly going to be getting offers in the warm approach, which is what Todd alluded to, where guys can't spam approach. They can't run the numbers game there because they're going to poison the well. Because if you approach 2-3 women in that kind of environment and you get rejected all 3 times, then, all of the girls are going to gossip and say, oh, that's just a guy who hits on every girl in this environment. So we got to stay away from him because he's a creep. Like nowadays, the number of options women has definitely exploded. I would say at least 10 times because of mainly online dating, but then there's also a couple other reasons such as interconnectivity. Like we live in bigger cities nowadays where, before it was mainly like in rural areas, and there's more like, access to transport where, people can travel across the city to city, very easily, when before you were mainly limited to your surroundings and the few people around you. So, but
yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't think
women's options has exploded.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if I agree. Like women wouldn't fuck a guy, you're saying, because he's a fuckboy. I feel like even when I was in high school, like, yeah, like people knew who fuckboys were, but it's not like if you got caught like fucking 1 or 2 people, like no woman would fuck with you. It's just you'd probably like be burned as far as relationships go, but you could still like find people to have sex with. I mean, I'll broadly agree that the number of options has probably increased due to like the fact that we live in bigger cities. They're like the groups of people are expanding or whatever. I just don't think it's quite as dire. I don't think it's quite as significantly different. Like before, like women were barely being propositioned, and now like the average girl is 100 guys on Instagram DMs. I think that those 2 things represent 2 extremes that aren't real. I think that a long time ago, a lot of women were still getting propositioned pretty often, and today the average girl is not getting 100 guys like DMing her on her Instagram. I feel like the 2 extremes are being too represented, too polarized here. That's my feeling on it.
I do think that there's some balancing that's occurring because like when I was younger, I think that there were more guys approaching in person and like, sending notes through the drive-through of the bank, and trying to hit on women that way. I don't think that really happens nowadays. I think that that's more of like, let's find this woman on Instagram and then DM her. So it's just like a different location in which it's occurring. But
that's probably true. Instead of like numbers, people are asking for like, what's your Instagram, what's your IG or whatever. Like I hear people say stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah, which is interesting. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. I do think that it widens the social circle. So like, when I was first thrown back into the dating world, if I hadn't gotten on a dating app, like, or social media, there's literally like nobody around me that I thought of that I would want to date or that would be available to date. So, so I definitely was not like getting approached then. So it was like the dating apps and social media that opened the door for more of that. So I do think that there's that difference, especially once you're getting to an older age, and you're not in college. or you're not in high school anymore.
Yeah.
Sure. The dating apps have definitely helped if you're outside of like work environments that are co-ed or college, because outside of those environments, you have to make a really big effort to meet people, except for dating apps give you the ability to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as the looks importance, like I do think that dating apps have skewed it because it is the first thing that you see. You know, I think that it objectifies both men and women a bit more and, you know, makes looks more important. But I do think that overall looks to women are a little less important, I think still, than men. Because I think that women are still looking for some of those other aspects that they want, which, you know, includes status.
Yeah.
And
I think you're talking about, you know, for relationships.
For relationships. Yeah.
But it's something that it's really difficult for women who are able to hook up with these high level guys than then to just say, okay, I'm going to marry the plumber then.
Oh, yeah. Like,
you know what I mean? But that's what's, I think, occurring is that a lot of average women are able to hook up with these guys, so they think that they can get relationships from these guys, but they can't.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
And then they end up single because they're not going to settle in their mind for someone who's at their level.
I've seen that even outside of looks, though, right? So,
Yeah.
like what you were alluding to with you know, how much money is he making per year? You know, if she starts hooking up with a guy that's making $200,000 a year, and then it doesn't follow through with a relationship, and then for her to like backtrack down in her mind to a guy that's making far less, like I have seen that be an issue.
Or I was thinking more of the looks. If you're with, you know, a giga Chad, as Stephen put it, and that's what you have access to that, but you don't have relationships access to that. It's really difficult to then date Joe Schmo, who's the 5 SMB. What's your thoughts on that?
I just super disagree with that. But I like it's so hard to quantify it, but like it just flies in the face. And it also could be like different social groups that we're in too. So maybe like different girls evaluate things in different ways. But I feel like I think men do this to some extent too. I know I do this. I think most men do this, but I feel like especially for women, I feel like the way that they view a guy is highly influenced by their relationship with that guy, or like how he interacts with that dude, like, or how she interacts with a guy. Like I've seen so many guys that are like super mid, but like the girl is like super in love with the dude, and she's like, oh no, like I really like it. Like I like his belly because it feels nice against me, or like I like his whatever, like random shit. You're like, this is not like a traditionally attractive guy, but they get along like super well. They've got a lot of chemistry. She gets along, and so they see each other in a nicer way, I guess, than you would traditionally think if they were just swiping on Instagram. And I feel like for guys, there's like a bit of truth to that as well, or at least like there are some women who it's like, I know like a particular girl, and she's like traditionally, like she looks like typically like pretty hot, but she's a huge fucking cunt. And I'm like, fuck, I hate this bitch. And she even looks ugly to me. She just looks bad now because I hate her so much. And I feel like it happens with men a little bit. I feel like it happens with women a lot. I don't know if a woman would ever be like, oh no, I've hooked up with this guy that looks like a model, and now I can't date this other guy who's like perfect in every way, but I just can't get over the fact that he's like a 6 out of 10. That feels like a really like, it just feels like something I would never hear a woman say. I'm sure there are some that feel that way, but I feel like that's way off the norm. That's just my feeling on that.
Well, Emily, you're a woman. What's your thought?
Yeah, so, all right, this is my truthful opinion, is that the way that I look at men, especially when I was dating, is their value in who they were as a person, to be honest. Like, I needed to have some level of attraction to them, but it was more of a yes, maybe, no kind of box that I was putting them in as I was dating them. And the maybe box was like really wide, and I didn't really care if they were, you know, a 5 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. Like, just because that guy was an 8 out of 10 and way more attractive, like what mattered more to me is like how they made me feel, and a lot of other aspects of like how we got along. Did our hobbies match? Did, you know, our values align? Did we kind of want the same things in the future?
Here's my question though. Like, and I hear what you're saying, and I think traditionally that has been the truth. Yeah. Stephen, I agree with you. I'm wondering though, how does that guy who's the 5 out of 10 with the belly or whatever, like how does he get in the door nowadays? The warm environments are almost completely gone. And so it's either cold approach or it's online dating. So if it's online dating, the research is in. Those guys aren't getting matches. I mean, you can chime in whenever you want when it comes to this.
Yeah. Well, I was going to address the other point that Stephen made, which is that they go with the guy with the belly, but then they're not going to be thinking about the model guy that they've been able to hook up with, who was 3 points above him. Well, it's interesting because there was this poll done by the New York Post, which I'm not 100% sure on American journalism, but I'm pretty sure it's a left-wing newspaper.
Just to be clear, New York Post is far-right newspaper, but go ahead.
It's a far-right
New York Times, I think you're probably referring to.
Oh, okay,
New York
yeah,
Times
sorry.
Is left, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I wasn't 100% sure on that one. But anyway, it did this poll, and it found that less than half of women say that their husband, the person they marry, was the best sex that they ever had. So that's less than half. In other words, the majority of women nowadays getting married, the best sex that they had was, some random guy that they hooked up with, or an ex-partner that they had. You get the idea.
I normally never, ever, ever do this. And if you don't have it, that's fine. I don't like to be like, source. But I had somebody make a claim like this, and I tried to find that poll. I actually just talked to somebody, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, that made the same claim. I tried to find that, and I couldn't find that anywhere. When I went digging for stats on that, like who was the best sex or what was the best sex you had, the closest thing I could find to that number is, I think like 52% of couples said that the sex had decreased or was worse in their relationship after they'd had a child because of like all the stresses that went along with that. But I couldn't find data that said that like 50% of women had. So, and you don't have to do it now. I would just be curious if you could find it.
I've already put it in the in the Zoom chat. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did. Yeah. While you was talking, I was typing in the background trying to find it because I didn't want to just pull the statistic out of my ass.
Wait, how do I find the Zoom chat? I'm a boomer. Oh wait, never mind. I got it.
It's at the bottom.
Yeah.
I got it.
I wonder though.
I don't know if it has, the methodology, the like how the poll was conducted or anything like that. But the poll is in that New York Post article. Sorry, so it's in there. But obviously, that's like not exactly a study. And
damn, yeah, okay. So I'm just reading this. This sounds like whoever. I wonder where they pulled, like what the group of people was they pulled here, because this says 66% of, I guess, married people would rather read a book, watch a movie, or take a nap than sleep with a spouse. Did they were these like older people or people that like had been cheated on? I'm curious because damn, these sound really depressing.
It's after 1 year of marriage, probably.
This is another thing that I hate to appeal to this like anecdotally, but I guess like I've been like with a wide variety of people. Like my body count is fairly high. The 5 best sexual partners that I've had, bar none, like it's not even close, are the 5 women that I had a year plus relationship with. And like half of those women at the start knew almost nothing sexually. They were like complete total novices just because neither of us had like or they didn't have much of a sexual background. I feel like sex and relationships, the longer that you're together, the more you learn the other person's body, the more concerned you're for your partner. It seems really hard for me to believe. I guess it's possible, but especially for women, it seems hard to believe that like you would have better sex over 50% of the time on a one-night stand than you would with like a long-term partner. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that sounds really hard for me to believe. I'm super curious how they did the polling on these numbers.
Well, it actually says that 52% said that the best was with an ex, not a one-night stand. So I don't know what the stats is for, how many women said that it was a one-night stand.
Oh, sure. Okay. So maybe it was
benefits.
That makes more sense.
If it was an ex, that's at least got, some element of like learning each other's bodies and things like that. But obviously the person that they settle down with, that's like worse when it comes to the actual marriage. And as for why that is, I'm not 100% sure, but I'll leave it to the audience on this one because you've got your anecdotal evidence. I've got this New York Post thing. Neither are particularly good sources, so I don't think we can really speak too much more on this unless one day if there's another study like or poll that comes along which is a lot more scrupulous with regard to like its methodology.
Well, the thing that I would add too is I don't think that women necessarily choose to be with the person forever that they have had the best sex with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Well, because there's much more to a man than just that.
Just that.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you would probably call that beta boxing, then, right?
What, that when a guy is able to get a woman into a relationship or marriage through leading with his wallet?
No, not necessarily, but what Emily was speaking about was saying that just having great sex with someone is not going to be the determinant factor of if they marry that person. It's going to be much more than that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's plenty of people
course.
out there that have good ecstatic chemistry. Sometimes it's because of the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
you can probably speak to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the best sexual experiences I had was with a woman that we hated each other. I mean, literally hated each other. So I would go pick her up, and we would argue the entire time over to my place because she didn't have a car. And then we'd have this amazing sex, and then we'd argue all the way back. And then we'd be like, okay, same time next week. And that's an anomaly for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where that's where that physical chemistry comes in, but then there was nothing else in common.
There's like zero compatibility.
Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens for sure.
Have any of you three heard of the dual mating strategy?
Dual mating or
No.
dual mating?
Dual as in two. I don't know if that's an accent thing.
Yeah, it's your accent.
Two mating strategies.
No.
Enlighten us.
Destiny, have you heard of it?
You're not talking like K series versus R series, are you?
I think that is the same concept.
It has
I
to
just
do
forgot
with
which way round it is, K versus R. I forgot which one is the genetic component and which one's the provider component.
Oh, no, never mind. That's way different. K versus R mating strategies have to do with, do you have like 1,000 children and hope that some of them survive, or do you have 1 or 2 children and you're like very invested in the outcome? So that's something way different. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. It's similar, yeah, but it's not exactly the thing. But it's a similar sort of concept because the K versus R is like the man's version of a dual mating strategy, because both men and women have dual mating strategies, but they're different. Because men's dual mating strategy is the K versus R thing you said about where a man, he can either like single down with one woman and be like a brilliant provider just for the few children that they have and ensure those children's ultimate survival, or he's got the spread his seed tactic where he just tries to impregnate as many women as he possibly can and just basically run the numbers game on it. So, if he pumps and dumps 500 women and deserts them, so he's not going to be their provider, he's just going to hope that still like 50 of those women are able to raise their child and have them not die of starvation. So that's like the guy's dual mating strategy, whichever one he can do depending on his value. But the woman's dual mating strategy is that they want two things. They want the good genetics from a man. They want good genetic material, so strength, fitness, height, like good facial attractiveness, like good health indicators such as clear skin, a symmetrical face, things like that. That's the genetic component, but then they also want the providership component, which is how many financial resources a person has. Like if he's would he like instill good values in the children, things like that, things that would actually develop the children after the fact that they are born. And the argument is that women will want to sleep, like they have more sexual desires for chads, because they have like better genetic like appearance. They look like they have better genetics, but then they want to have the provider in some beta guy who has a lot of financial resources. So that's the dual mating strategy, is that a woman will sleep with the chad, that's like her stronger desires for him, but then wants to have a relationship with the beta because he's the one who's actually got this provider thing going on for him.
Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I think we all probably have like our optimal, like there's a lot of guys that probably wish they could marry like 3 wives, like have one that cooks and cleans, one that's like the sex master in bed, and then another that like takes care of, like I'm sure like we all, everybody probably has like things they wish they could get that you usually can't find in one person. I probably wouldn't disagree with that.
So don't you think though that's one of the issues though that is happening is that because of women's liberation, which on the most part I think has been extremely positive, but I think it's almost gone too far as being able to kind of engage in large scale hookup culture, which then interferes with their ability to pair bond long term. And so, they the kind of old age old adage would be, kind of, partying through your 20s and then getting to the point where, the wall starts coming and then you decide to find, somebody that is a good provider. So like the way I heard it one time, I'm not sure what podcast it was on, but essentially it was that like if you took a 22-year-old woman and you asked her what the list of things she would want in a partner, it would be gigantic. But by the time she's 32, like most of those are going to drop off, and they're going to want someone who's like a nice guy and has a job.
I mean, it makes sense if they're still in the dating world for quite a few years and they're not having success, that they're going to become a little bit more realistic.